It's like the closer Halloween gets, the less I can sleep. Like I can feel something coming. It's not good. Before marvels walked the earth, before gods lived among us, before the fantastic and the amazing taught us that even heroes are human, Marvel Comics went by a different name, Timely. During the 1950s, Timely Comics was known for romance and monsters. Today, we look at Marvel's most prominent and greatest monster of all. Original Sin was a 2014 Marvel Comics event by writer Jason Aaron that asked the question, what do we really know about our beloved characters? What secrets line the tracks of Marvel history? During a confrontation with the Orb, who is a giant eyeball man, I don't know, don't ask. Using the removed eyeball of Uatu, the Watcher responsible for observing all that transpires in our region of space, psychically reveals information to the heroes only known to the Watcher himself. For Spider-Man, it was that somebody else was bitten by the spider and hid him from him for years. For Deadpool, it's that he had a wife and kid he never knew about. But for Iron Man and the Hulk, the reveal is far more sinister. Hulk vs. Iron Man by Mark Waid. Beautiful cover work by Alex Ross. Interiors by Mark Bagley. Well, for the most part. We'll get back there. The issue opens with Iron Man fighting for his life, hanging on by a thread in a vicious battle against a monstrous behemoth known as the Hulk. Monstrous behemoth. Monstrous behemoth. Years ago, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner are college rivals and friends, often working on projects together. But over time they grew distant. Tony Stark became an arms dealer, a war profiteer. Bruce Banner became interested in investing in gamma research for the purposes of curing cancer and other diseases, as well as green energy. No pun intended. Banner is later commissioned by the US government and General Ross to create a deterrent, a gamma bomb that would be one of the most powerful weapons the human race has ever seen, if dropped. However, it would also further Banner's research and bring him closer to changing the world via the aforementioned curing of diseases and the clean energy. Tony Stark stumbles onto the scene, drunken as always back then, looks at the bomb and says aloud to Ross and the investors who are present in the room that the gamma bomb is shielded, intentionally made less effective by Bruce Banner when it could be a much bigger explosion, a far greater radius of effect. Ross yells at Banner and insists upon him making the bomb more effective, more explosive, bigger damage, higher radius. Banner refuses, he won't do it. Later, Bruce and a drunken Tony would argue about the bomb, resulting in Banner storming out of the room, and Stark having a meeting with Ross. It's a bit chilly in here. I'm going to go get something warmer to put on. 1 sec. Never mind, as it turns out, it's perfectly warm in here. Even Tony doesn't believe what seems to have happened that night, so he launches an investigation to see what happened. Eventually, Tony recovers the memories of what happened that night. He did it. He tampered with the bomb and made Banner the Hulk. It's all his fault, and Hulk knows it too. Marvel's greatest monster wasn't Hulk. It was Tony Stark. Banner uses the derivative of Arno Stark's Extremis formula to give Hulk Banner's intellect so that Hulk would be both strong and smart enough to take down Tony Stark. Stark throws everything at Hulk, using an entire Iron City. During the Marvel Now period, Tony Stark built a city that was basically an Iron Man suit, but it was also a city of the future. You can read all about it. That's not what this is about. Suffice it to say, Tony Stark has a city that he built, and he uses it as a weapon against Hulk. But it's not enough. Hulk is too strong and too smart. He's always one step ahead of Tony. Hulk trashes Stark, who wakes up hours later in the desert where the bomb turned Bruce Banner into Hulk to begin with. Stark uses his internal biotech. Gross. Stark uses his internal biotech to show Smart Hulk, later Doc Green, the schematics proving what he had done. As it turns out, Tony did sabotage the bomb, but he changed his mind and ended up actually creating a ventilation system for the shielding, because basically what had happened was Banner had overdone it on the shielding, and as a result of that, the outburst, the force of the gamma radiation would actually build pressure and explode to several multitudes, 4 or 5 multitudes of what the initial damage, the initial radius would have been for the bomb, making it infinitely more destructive, a world killer, potentially. So Tony adds ventilation to fix that problem. But here's what Stark also remembered about that night. Seeing an energy he didn't himself understand, decided, being too drunk and too lazy, to email Banner about it and hope he got the email before the launch the next morning. Telling Banner that he should check out the strange energy readings that Tony was getting, knowing that he would know how to fix it. But Banner never got the email. He deleted it, assuming Stark was trying to again convince him to make the bigger explosion. This is what led to the Hulk's creation. In the end, the original sin wasn't malice, it was pride. So I'm not a fan of tie-ins. I don't really like tie-ins in general. I think they can work. I think they don't work usually. They tend to detract from the narrative and interrupt the story that the writer is trying to tell in the book. There are some notable examples of tie-ins that really work. I would argue that the Amazing Spider-Man tie-in by JMS is as better than Civil War itself, potentially. The Daredevil tie-in to King in Black is really good because it's Chip Zdarsky. He's a master, especially when it comes to street-level characters. So there certainly are examples where it works. Secret Wars 2 has a hilarious Spider-Man crossover that's just ridiculous. The original Secret Wars 2, I believe that was from 1985. But generally speaking, I don't like tie-ins. I think this one, as well as the Deadpool one, is a fairly well-regarded tie-in to Original Sin. I think that the story's fun. It's breezy. It's easy. It's got some really lovely visuals in the main cover. It looks like an old monster movie poster by Alex Ross, who is, of course, a master of his craft. I gotta say, though, I'm disappointed with Bagley, who is certainly not putting his best effort forward on this one. And that could be a time restraint, because tie-ins are so editorially mandated, it might have been a last-minute job. But Bagley is known for being an incredibly fast worker, working on several titles a month and doing it with absolute style, like when he was working on Ultimate Spider-Man. But given that he didn't even work on the last issue, I gotta think that maybe his heart just wasn't in it. But it's a good book. It's a fun book. It's not like groundbreaking material, but it's a really good retcon. It's one of those retcons that I think works really well, which is another rarity. So for Mark Waid to pull off a really entertaining story as well as a retcon that actually makes sense and doesn't ruin everything, I think that is commendable, and just a bad idea in general. I think the whole original sin idea, in premise, in theory, there ended up being some pretty good outcomes. Like Cindy Moon Silk is somewhat liked. She's a very unnecessary character, but people who like her seem to really like her. So depending on who you talk to, that was a good one. Deadpool's daughter was a really good one, and I think this was quite a good one. Daredevil also had a compelling original sin tie-in. So I think overall the results were fairly favorable for the tie-ins, but generally speaking, as a rule, you shouldn't make retconning editorially mandated. It should come naturally and make sense. It should be something that the writer wants to do because they think it will add to a story. Last time we had a huge example of sweeping retcons being enforced by editorial. We got stuff like Sins Past. We got stuff like One More Day. Those are both the same example in many ways because it was JMS's run of Spider-Man and it was Quesada who mandated the retcons. But those are probably the most infamous examples in Marvel Comics history. But I digress. I have to go clear my head. I've had a hell of a month, and I just need to take a minute to breathe. Thank you for watching yet another Halloween special. I'll see you at Christmas, maybe before. I don't know. Like I said, things have been weird. Anyway, I'll see you next time.